It's Fill Your Plate Now, where every bite brings you closer to the farm gate and further from what's unhealthy. Now, here's your hosts, Julie and Tammy, helping you live well by filling your plate well.
So, Julie, here you are again, and I am intrigued because we talk about agriculture and nutrition, farm to table. And yet you're telling me you have someone who was formerly or not practicing as now, but formerly an electric engineer,
Correct.
computer guru.
So the young man I'm about to introduce is full of a lot of interesting details in his professional career. And in fact, I've gotten to hang out with him for quite some time because he worked with me at Arizona Farm Bureau. So we might as well just get into it, right?
That sounds good.
So we have today the director of the Department of Agriculture here in the state of Arizona, Paul Brierly. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Julie.
And like I said, we know each other. But you're right. You started out as an electrical engineer a few years ago.
Years ago, I'm not really a young man anymore.
Well, you're still younger than me.
I will always be younger than you.
So, but then I got a vibe over the years as I've talked to you, because you and I worked together at Arizona Farm Bureau, that you kind of missed agriculture and you wanted to get back into it. So you and your family started a hay baling business in Safford, Arizona?
Yeah, actually, my parents had moved out there while I was in college.
Okay.
And every time we'd visit them, I was working in the San Francisco Bay Area, in suburbia and corporate world. And every time we'd visit them in Safford, it was just a breath of fresh air. And yeah, I wanted to get back where I could weld and drive tractor and all that. So they had a hay business there. We moved there and expanded it with them.
Okay. And then you started volunteer work for Arizona Farm Bureau. And then lo and behold, they hired you as the director of operations. And that's where I first met Paul and have known him for quite some time. And then somebody stole you away. The University of Arizona. You went to Yuma for I always forget the full name of this, but
I could watch you struggle, or I could tell you it's the Yuma Center of Excellence for Desert Agriculture.
yes, and
See
you,
why you forgot.
yeah. And you were their first director. And then you got appointed as a director for Arizona's Department of Agriculture. So coming kind of full circle, and in most of it, maybe not when you were an electrical engineer, but most of your life, from boots on the ground to now policy issues and running all over the state. I feel very blessed that we got the director here because you're kind of hard to nail down. But my first question to you is probably the easiest one. Give us a little bit more about your background. You grew up in California in an agriculture area.
I did. I don't usually tell people that, but no, I grew up in Santa Barbara County, Central California. My dad was first generation agriculture. He grew up in L.A. and wanted to become a farmer. He studied actually animal husbandry, but became a crop farmer. Worked 4 different farms around different places and ended up starting his own farm there in a little town called Solvang, California, that some people know because it's a little Danish tourist town. But nice little town with a lot of agriculture, and we grew cannery tomatoes and sugar beets and alfalfa and grains and flowers and just a lot of different things. And it was great. That was my only job I ever had. I started at $1 an hour, I think, when I could do something, and
You got a paycheck.
I did. I got a paycheck. Worked with him through college, and but yeah, I did go off and became an electrical engineer, computer scientist. That lasted about 5 years, and yeah, I just wanted to get back to the farm, and so we made the move to Safford and got involved, like you said, with Farm Bureau and politics, and eventually came into the main Farm Bureau office here. But through that, I got to know the issues and the people, and start building a network of all the ag people around the state, and then had that stint in Yuma, which was amazing. And that was a public-private partnership that did research for ag. So I had one foot in industry and one in the university.
Right.
And my job was to understand what were the pressing problems they faced, bring resources to those, and most importantly is come up with usable results that can make an impact. And so
And I know it was the farmers that told you usable results, correct?
yes, and they didn't always get that from the university. So
Sure.
that was my role, and it was really amazing. We got a lot, and it actually kind of combined my electrical engineering background too, because as ag tech becomes more and more the solution to the challenges we face, I was able to bridge that gap. And a lot of what we did was to bring ag tech to the problems that they faced.
Well, you have to also almost feel like a native because you came out when you were raising your own kids. Now they're all grown up and
Yeah,
with
and
kids just like you, and um, but you really embedded yourself into the community here in Arizona.
I consider myself in Arizona. Yeah, I've been here 33 years. Have no plans to ever leave. Yeah, raised a family here. My wife and I raised 3 kids. Or all over the place, New York, Houston, and here. But
Yeah, they are.
um, yeah, one has an ag degree, one's working in ag tech. So
State, you must have made quite an impression on those. And I have been to Solvang.
have you? Yeah,
I believe, isn't there a wine country now that's
it's a lot of wine country now. Yeah, yeah.
a cute little town?
It's that's the only reason I mention it. It's a small town, but a lot of people have gone there. Yeah.
So now you know the story of the electrical engineer and how he ended up farming here in Arizona.
On the transition. I wouldn't want to come back to that nice open space.
Yep.
The smells of hay and
It's just wonderful.
alfalfa. And yeah.
I will tell you that about half the people there where I was working thought it was the neatest thing ever that I was going off to the farm, and the other half thought I was absolutely crazy. But it was a great move.
Well, let's talk about some of the crazy sides.
Yeah.
For our listeners who really haven't had much of an affiliation with the Arizona Department of Agriculture, tell us a little bit about the services they offer, both to the farmer and how it benefits the community too.
Sure. So when I came in, I think I had about 13 people reporting to me, a lot of different divisions and everything else. And after about a year, I formulated, the organization chart just didn't make sense to me. And so formulated a kind of big reorganization, mainly to make it, well, I say this facetiously, to make it easier to explain. So we now have 4 divisions. 3 of them are regulatory, and that is plants and produce services, animal services, and environmental and consumer protection. Um, so I'll talk a little bit about each of those,
Great.
and then I'll talk about the non-regulatory ones. So um, plants and produce services, we are out, for one thing, we're trapping all the time to see if there are pests, invasive pests that could damage agriculture. And if we find them, then we have to respond with maybe a quarantine and try to solve the problem there, while the rest of the state can still ship their product. So I grew up thinking all regulation was bad, but what I found out is we need regulation to show that our products are free from disease, free from food pathogens, whatever it is, so that we can ship those products and sell those products. So we we do that. A lot of insect identification and things like that with so plants and produce services, they do that, and they do food safety. So food safety is the other really big thing. Produce safety, especially, we might remember the E. coli outbreak in 2018.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of love to talk about that maybe in later in the show. Really proud of where we've come from that time as an industry and as a department. But those are the 2 big things in plants and produce safety. Well, I guess the third thing in there is any product that's coming in from Mexico or other places, we inspect those for quality and make sure that they do meet the quality requirements. So those are the 3 big things that plants and produce services does.
Do you get many calls on food safety issues from the consumer?
Not so much. Those tend to be more going to the health departments, county health departments and whatnot. If there's something to respond to, then yes, we're very much a part of it, but we don't tend to get the consumer calls. Thank goodness. Then we have animal services, and we have the state veterinarian in our office. The biggest surprise to me in this position is how many or how much of my time is spent on animal disease type things. We had the bird flu outbreak. People probably
Yeah.
remember Hickman's Farms was hit, just devastated by bird flu. We were in the middle of responding to that. USDA had a team of 9 people in our office for 3 weeks, working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, to help us manage that outbreak and help them get through, depopulating, disposing, sanitizing, and repopulating, getting back in business. Um, Currently, the New World screwworm that's stopped imports of cattle from Mexico. We're on the front lines, especially being a border state. We are absolutely on the front lines of that. Um, and then the second part of animal services is all the livestock inspectors that are out. Anytime someone wants to move their animals or sell them at auction or those kind of things, we make sure that the ownership is verified and the animal health. And then also they do all the inspections of meat, poultry, dairy, eggs. We're out in all those plants, and I'm sure you were familiar with that in the dairy industry. Yeah,
Well, how many employees do you have? That's quite the job.
that's a good question. So we have a little over 300 employees, about a $45 million budget. Yeah.
Nonstop job.
It's a yeah. There's a lot that we do.
Not too long ago, we did a series on all your departments for our Talk to a Farmer Friday, and it was so fun. And I say that not, but the reality was it was so fun just meeting everyone and seeing the things that they did. So, you know, we sense that it's a lot of regulation, but there's actually an economic value proposition to what the Arizona Department of Agriculture does that most people don't think about. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Let me finish up on the other
Oh,
divisions real
sure.
quick. Because we then have environmental and consumer protection as our third regulatory division, and that's making sure that pesticides are licensed, that applicators are trained, that workers are safe in the field, those kind of things. But also, I put into that when we reorganized the home, so the home and business, like pest control and weed control and things, those are all licensed and regulated through us, which are pesticides too, right? For home and businesses.
We've done an episode in the past on pesticides, and we know that's a big concern. So that's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. We license the products. Again, we license the applicators, and then we do trainings or work with people in the fields to make sure that they're safe.
And it's a continuing education program. If I'm a licensed pesticide applicator, I have to renew what every year?
Every year, California and Arizona are both really good about requiring that the applicators constantly are updating their education. And then we also brought in weights and measures, which is interesting to people, and they talk about economic impact. Weights and measures makes sure that when you buy a gallon of gas, that you're getting a gallon of gas. When you put something on the scale, from a jewelry scale to a truck scale, that it is that you're getting what it says.
And you didn't always have that in the department.
No, that's a reasonably new addition, along with what they call structural pest control, which is the home and business part of pesticides. So they're in there making sure that it's a level marketplace and the consumers are protected from any problems. There are price scanners, Walmart, Circle K. If there's a complaint about a price, either price markings or the way it rings up, that's us.
Wow.
It's really far-reaching,
Yeah, it's a lot.
broad spectrum to cover.
It's a lot.
Paul basically doesn't sleep. Neither does his staff. No.
No, great staff in all these divisions. And this is getting in a little more probably into that all is an economic impact too, to keep everything safe and business humming. And but our fourth division is non-regulatory. So whereas the other three, they do licensing, they do inspections, we do enforcement. The fourth one is something I've expanded and renamed. It is now called the Agriculture and Food Systems Support Division. So that's a pretty broad name, but support being the key word. It's there to support agriculture and food systems. And they do what they used to do was agricultural consultation and training. So it's a non-regulatory training. So we help people to comply with air quality regulations, food safety regulations, pesticide regulations, but not in a regulatory way. These people go out and work with them to help them
Get to where they need to be.
get where they need to
Okay.
be, but not with the hammer of
Yeah.
regulation. But one part we've really been growing is grant programs. So we're doing our best to bring in funding programs, both from the federal government and from the excuse me, from the state government.
Okay.
And we have things like the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program, which helps specialty crops become more competitive with research and marketing and things like that. Um, we have a livestock operators fire and flood assistance program, which is if a ranch gets burned out by a wildfire, which in Arizona typically happens around the end of June, right? And then what happens 2 weeks later? The monsoons start and we get a flood, and then they have flood damage because of the fire. And so we have a fund to give out grants to rebuild infrastructure. If your fence is burned, if your tanks were filled up or washed out, we have a soil health program that is meant to improve water use efficiency by improving soil health. So that's a new one that we have.
Right,
And
that's a very popular program right now.
we had no idea when we put it out if we'd get 3 applications or 100 applications. We got 50 applications, yeah, and it's
So
it's a lot to
that's
work
good.
through. Um, but that's a new one we're excited about. Again, that division, a lot of grant programs, a lot of training, and then the third thing I'll say about them is they're very involved. And I hired a great person to run it, Ashley Grab, who was in the local foods um, ecosystem, and they are resurrecting the Arizona Grown program. So we're going to be supporting local producers with both
Yeah.
business tools and advice, and production tools and advice, but also helping them gain markets with.
And you guys may update or change the branding slightly, but you and I probably recognize it from the past as kind of that bright orange with black letters, Arizona Grown.
Right, I
Yeah.
remember that program.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I've met Ashley. She's a little superstar. So I think she's very well suited for that as well.
Yeah, and we're going to even wrap trade into that. There's all sorts of trade resources from USDA Foreign Ag Service that we have access to
Oh,
and really haven't been utilizing. So I'm making a big push there, and that's just one more way if we can get people out to a trade show in some other country and show their wares. And
It's amazing.
people are dying. I've been on a couple trade missions, and people are really excited to get American products. They know they're high quality, and they're willing to pay more for them. And so, yeah, a lot of opportunity there.
Well, and then maybe that's a segue into my question of, we do think of the Arizona Department of Agriculture being more on the regulatory side of it. You've just highlighted that that's only 3 of the 4 divisions or departments. But there is a true value proposition in the economic viability of what you guys do. Talk a little bit more about that.
Again, just the fact that regulation is not a bad word.
Yeah.
And I say that because it's what enables, not only enables commerce to happen, both in the state, nationally, and internationally. If you talk about sending seed, it has to be certified free of disease, whatever the state or the country that you're sending to. So there's all sorts of ways that we allow commerce to happen. But then there's the whole public health and, making sure there's not food outbreaks, things like that is both public health, but it's also a huge economic hit, right? Like that E. coli outbreak was just devastating.
Mm-hmm.
The one that had preceded that on spinach in like 2012, 2002, I can't remember.
Yeah.
There was years before the spinach market got back, where the demand picked back up to where it was. So by making sure these kinds of things don't happen, you keep Arizona's reputation strong, and you keep those markets there.
Yeah. We forget that we're fed 2 times, if not 3 times a day, every week, every month, 365 days out of the year. And every once in a while, there may be some type of food outbreak. And then just having the system in place, protocols in place to protect all stakeholders, and primarily the consumer, certainly, but, so
Well, and that's why I like having a podcast too, because what you get on the news is a sound bite.
Yeah.
And you hear spinach is contaminated or some kind of
Right.
fruit has E. coli and all those other producers out there that are not even next door or near where this happened
right.
suffer because the whole category of food suffers when
Mhm.
it happens.
You're right.
Yes.
It impacts everybody. Yeah.
Nice to be able to kind of expand,
Right.
on a topic so everyone understands, yes, food is safe. Yes, these things are taken care of.
Yep.
They're very isolated.
Food safety, food security. Yep.
And while you don't want anyone to get sick, when you do, and you can't say this during an outbreak, but when you do look at the numbers and the billions of servings of fresh vegetables, um, we're worse off as a society not eating our vegetables, not eating our salads versus that teeny infinitesimal risk. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of agencies that you've worked with, which is fantastic. But expand a little bit on some of the other federal group agencies you work with, or do you work with like our land grant university, University of Arizona on research, or how you interface with some of these different departments and um, agencies outside of the state agency.
yeah, I'll have to limit it because I could talk all day about that.
And we just seen occur on not too long ago.
Oh, good.
Too.
Good. Yeah, she's one of our sister agencies. I'll start with the state because one of my jobs is being on the governor's cabinet, and what I really do with that is to make sure that the governor's team and all the other agencies know the importance of agriculture and what policies they're doing, how they're going to impact agriculture, and try to come up with solutions that help agriculture fare better under the policies that are done. So, and we work with Department of Water Resources, Department of Environmental Quality, the State Land Department, even the Gaming Department, because we utilize veterinarians in their down season, which worked out perfect because we were able to really add to our personnel during the bird flu outbreak, thanks to gaming. But there's Arizona Game and Fish Department and fire and forestry management, and the list goes on that the agriculture intersects with. And I can talk directly to those directors and say, hey, we need to work on this or solve this. And so that those collaborations are great. Then at the federal level, I belong to an organization called NASDA, which is the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. And I frankly underestimated that until I went to my first meeting. And at that meeting, I thought, oh, I'm going to meet some other directors and hear from some speakers. First thing I knew, I was in a closed-door meeting with the top leadership of the FDA food safety program.
Wow.
And this organization had been pressuring them to change their culture to respond different because their response to the E. coli outbreak in Yuma was really not a very good response. It was trying to find the bad guy rather than trying to figure out what happened and fix it. And
prevent it for the future.
yeah, exactly. So I'm so proud of where we've come since that time because a number of things have happened. We've gotten federal funding to do training programs of the industry. So there's lots of food safety training, and we do that in partnership with the University of Arizona. So they're close partners of ours in developing curriculum and doing research to figure out parameters for the food safety and things like that. So lots of training, lots of inspections. We have a lab. Our state lab is now certified to do all the testing, and FDA will accept those results in the case of an outbreak. And then the last thing is we got a rapid response team. So they are ready and poised. Plus we now have the jurisdiction to respond.
Yeah, two things, a jurisdiction to respond and then your rapid response.
Yeah.
Those are two brand new things in the whole. Okay.
And the lab certification. So yeah, we hope we never have to do it, but we're locked and loaded and ready to respond. And the other thing I'll say is we now have a really good partnership with FDA. Through this NASDA organization, I have quarterly meetings with that top food safety leadership. They've put all human foods under one person, so now there's no pointing fingers. It's all in his team, and they actually came out to Yuma about 3 weeks ago and spent 2 days with us to talk about things, talk about what happened, talk about what's going on now, talk about the programs that we do, talk about funding that had been cut. And they went back realizing, wow, the ROI on these programs is huge, and we're going to restore your funding and get those programs back. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think our consumers really understand how many touch points there are for food safety and, identifying when there is a problem and eliminating that problem.
Yeah.
But I know with dairy, it's internal and it's external. And, there are so many touch points to monitor that it is an incredibly safe product.
the industry works so hard, and they're so good at it, and it's heartbreaking when there is an outbreak because you know how much work has gone in to prevent that.
Yeah. Well, on that, food safety is the cornerstone for a lot of what we have to do, and certainly what you have to do as a state agency. But, and you did explain the department's inspections, but is there anything in the whole scope of it when it comes to food safety that if you were sitting in front of, and basically you are, because we've got a lot of listeners to Fill Your Plate Now podcast, if you were talking to them, the assurances that you would give them, the insights that you would give them on how critical this cornerstone point of food safety is?
Especially having been in Yuma for 8.5 years, working with those growers.
Yeah.
And that's I keep mentioning that because produce is a product that doesn't have a kill step.
Yeah.
You harvest it raw, it's delivered, it's normally eaten raw. There's no pasteurization, there's no cooking. So it's really vulnerable. And of course we produce outside, right? With water that's surface water and animals that are out there. And so there's lots of vulnerabilities it's just, again, it's a healthy food that we need people eating more of. That's one of the great opportunities with the current administration is the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again.
Yep.
Some of that is kind of threatening to agriculture, but some of it is very much an opportunity. And part of that is eating wholesome, healthy, fresh food. And so there's a great role for fresh produce to play, but it's got to be safe, right? And you can't have outbreaks. And so the federal government came up with the Food Safety Modernization Act and the Produce Safety Rule and a bunch of different things.
Which some of it, did they not model it after your farmers in Yuma, what they were self-inflicting on themselves, right?
Yeah, California and Arizona both have what's called a Leafy Greens Marketing Agreement, LGMA, and that is industry saying we need to make sure that in a way that works, that we make sure our food is safe. And so the shippers who buy the product require that if you're gonna farm and give them product, you have to follow LGMA rules. And so as much as possible, we work hard to try to coordinate those. So you're not doing one set of things here and then you got to do a whole nother similar set of things over here for the produce safety rule and those audits. But it's all sorts of rules about training and operations and audits and it's just a huge amount of things that they go through to make sure that food is safe.
So to me, it's like layer upon layer of these protocols that are set to protect all stakeholders involved, and especially you and I as consumers, because boy, I'm not going to give up my leafy greens. I love a good salad. That's what I had for lunch today. And I don't know, it puts me at peace to know the level of food safety that's being employed on the, boots on the ground farmer. Their written protocols that they even have. I go to John Bolt's farm and he can pull out his and he can show me some of his food safety requirements. And then at the state level with Arizona Department of Agriculture, and then I can know that the federal government is layering something too. So
yeah, and we actually call ourselves co-regulators. So our relationship with those federal agencies is pretty unique. And it gives us, especially through that NASTA organization, quite a voice because we're not going in as a commodity group trying to get some special thing for our commodity. We're going in saying, hey, we're doing a lot of the regulatory work that you, federal government, would normally be doing, but they actually fund our programs to do it because, number one, it's more cost effective, but number two, it's more, well, it works better. On the farm, when we respond, it's people that are local, people that know the industry, the industry is much more amenable to a local inspector coming in than a federal agent. So
interesting.
Well, I think it's so interesting too that so much of our agriculture is proactive, and even at the farm level, almost tri-regulated there because they impose upon themselves regulations to try to help prevent any kind of a problem as well. So many layers to that.
Yeah. Yep.
And then when we take the food from the farm and start talking about the nutrition side of things, I know
everybody knows, I guess the USDA just released their new food pyramid, and so there is some involvement on the nutrition side as well as on the ag side through the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Department of Agriculture here. What kind of programs here are you involved with on the nutrition side of things?
You know, that's not something we've been directly involved in the past. We have our Arizona Grown program that we're, again restarting, and that definitely in its 3-year plan has different programs that'll um, help with that. We partner with the Farm to School program, the Department of Education for school lunches. We've been applying for some grant funding. There are some federal programs that have gone away as far as local food purchasing and things like that. So we're trying to replace those, and right, we're in the middle of, hopefully almost at the end of, trying to get some grant funding for a program like that, so that our local producers can have a better shot to sell their product to institutions like schools or hospitals or those kind of things. So it's an important area, and there's nutrition programs, food as medicine programs are some of the things that we're trying to help move along. We have an advisory council, the Agriculture and Food System Support Advisory Council, that has nutritionists on it, and
There you go.
very, local food producers, and good mix of stakeholders that are advising us and helping us to be active in that space of how do we make sure that the Farm Bill has funding for those kind of programs. And so we do a lot when we're visiting with those federal agencies. NASDA gets me in front of, I have somewhat regular meetings with the Secretary of Agriculture, and we went out and met in person when the new FDA administrator was put in place, and things like that. So we work really closely with the USDA, the EPA, and the FDA.
That's great. And I think, buying local and having some of your local producers, local farmers able to sell like to schools and to other entities, I mean, it's more sustainable too. And my background's as a dietitian. It helps you maintain more of the nutrients. It's not traveling as far. It's not taking as long to get to that end consumer. Just a healthier product and helps the economy.
I was just gonna say, you're creating jobs for those rural areas, and
Yeah.
people forget that. Yeah, we've got a lot of chip making and stuff in the Phoenix area, but you get out to most of the rural counties, they depend on agriculture for their to be jobs for their workforce.
Yeah, in some of the counties, it's like, solid end-to-end end-to-end
Yeah.
agriculture. I think of Graham County, and I love to go out there when the cotton fields are ready to be harvested. It's beautiful. So we have been talking a lot about food safety and inspections standards, how they translate into real value for families, especially for more of the vulnerable population, that someone might have diabetes, or, they have a compromised immune system. Talk a little bit about, how what Arizona Department of Agriculture does in that role, and why it's so supportive of people that might be a little bit more vulnerable, have to be a little bit more careful about what they eat.
Yeah, well, part of it goes back to food safety, and I've been talking a lot about produce safety, but I mentioned that we inspect the meat processing
Sure.
plants, the eggs, the dairy, the poultry, all those things. We're making sure that those are safe. Products that are coming in from out of the country, we're making sure those meet the standards, the quality standards and food safety standards as they come in. So there's all that, and then some of the nutrition um, education programs have gone away that were federal programs, and so again, we're trying to step in and fill that
Fill that
void
gap.
if we can get funding to do that. And that's, I mentioned Ashley Grab at our non-regulatory division, and she's very much comes from that arena and is very passionately trying to build up programs. And we do that through NASDA also, as we talk with USDA. It's like, here's the kind of programs, these ones have gone away, but here's some ways you can really support agriculture, nutrition, health, and rural economies. So
Cool. Really brings it all together. I love Ashley. She does a great job.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
Fantastic.
we've got a great team there. I really do. I mean, I get to take credit for all sorts of stuff, but the leadership team and our team all the way throughout is just terrific.
And the job is so varied. I mean, so many different areas that you touch.
Yeah.
And I have to go back because it still intrigues me. You had talked about in Yuma, you used your engineering background. Do you find your engineering and your computer background help you now with what you're doing, particularly with how fast technology is accelerating?
Well, I'm an old guy now. I'm not pretending to say I keep up with technology, but at least I have the way of thinking of what technology can do for us. Not specifically how to do it. I wouldn't claim to be able to do any of that, but I at least, again, I have that mentality of technology is not something to be scared of. It's something to be utilized, and everything from robotic thinners down there that, use computer vision to decide what plants to keep and which to get rid of, to the automated equipment. Labor has always been one of agriculture's biggest challenges. And so as we can automate some of those things, it's going to help. As you have sensors everywhere, as you get more broadband capability so that these sensors, automated equipment, all this stuff comes in, it not only helps with the labor problem, but it also makes ag more efficient, more productive, which lets us make a better argument to use water, right? We haven't touched on water, and none of this works in the desert without water. And I like to tell people we farm in the desert, not in spite of the desert, but because of the desert. We are almost always at the top productivity levels and quality levels because in the desert you control all the inputs. But one of those inputs has to be water, and we're threatened with losing access to some of the water, and I think we need to keep in mind all the benefits of agriculture and in particular, the benefits of desert agriculture. But it takes water.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trickle down effect to consumers could be substantial.
Yeah.
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 So, I'm still on this safety and inspections stuff or what an outbreak is like. And I remember a story, I think it was from Robert Smook in your, and he's in charge of the animal
He is services. Yeah.
division. So when the bird flu came along, people think, well, that's only going to impact, you're only thinking of agriculture. But one of the places that they had to help, he raised exotic birds and they had to help him depopulate it. And he also shared like the heartbreak of it was for the man that had all the birds. So some of the stories that come along, I mean, have you guys experienced other things like that? It's kind of like all boots on the ground. He had to suit up and help with the
Yeah.
depopulation.
Yeah. One thing about government that's been interesting to me is, we all want efficient, lean government. And often that means cutbacks to personnel and budgets and everything else. And you kind of make it work. But then something big like the bird flu comes along, and yeah, my deputy director, who I needed him helping me to delay the cage-free rule for
Yeah.
egg production, because that impacted the supply that we could get during bird flu. He spent the full day till 8 o'clock at night out helping depopulate a backyard
Yeah.
flock. We had, I'll probably get the name wrong, but the World Wildlife Zoo or something in the West Valley, that had big cats that were infected and in fact didn't make it. And
Aw.
in fact, we didn't experience this, but I just was reading an article that I think it's sea lions now have it in
Yeah.
California, and so yeah, it's a broad swath, and it does. If you just think of bird flu and birds and chickens, but it's not that. In fact, dairy became the big story for bird flu. Gosh, it's been 2 years ago now. Nobody thought about it, but it crossed into cattle, and all of a sudden it found a happy home in a cow's udder, and that became a huge thing that bird flu was affecting cattle.
Well, transferable like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you get transmission everywhere. So yeah, we have new surprises all the time.
That you do, and some of the stories you guys could continue to tell. So just be prepared. Tammy and I might show up and say, okay, we want to hear another story. I'm always fascinated by the human element of it, because when Robert was sharing the story, he was talking about the owner of the birds and how heartbreaking it was for him. And they don't just go out there and, there's a lot of humanity involved with some of these issues that you guys are dealing with. And I think that gives us a greater dimension oh, you're not just a state agency. There's people on your staff that are out there dealing with some of these things. And then on the other side of it, you're connecting with our Arizona families and trying to help them, whether they're producers in agriculture or whether it's a family that has a backyard flock that has to be depopulated because they've gotten the bird flu.
Yeah, we try very hard. So we really have two roles. We're regulators, but we're also supporters, right? And so we have to be, our regulation has to be rock solid. But we're not out there. That's not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to make everything work. And so we try really hard to work with people, to not be an impediment where we don't need to. I'll share one, and it's outside of production ag, but in the department, when I was fairly new, our director of at the time was called pest management, but the structural pest, the home and business pest control, he was getting an award from the industry group, the Arizona Pest Professionals Organization. And so I went to be supportive, and they not only presented him the award, a collaboration award or partnership award, but they made it an ongoing annual award named after him. So it was the Vince Craig Industry Collaboration Award or something like that. And I was so proud that our agency, the people in our agency, would be awarded by their industry that we were good collaborators.
And take his name
Yeah.
and make it a legacy award.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So love those kind of things. But
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's talk about something really positive related to like innovation. Whether it's food safety or technology or nutrition research, what are you most excited about with the innovation you're seeing on the horizon?
oh gosh, it's it goes everywhere. I'll share. I mean, obviously AI is going to make a big difference. Automation. We see all the Waymos in the street here in Phoenix. When those things become that widespread, then you realize we're going to be able to buy stuff off the shelf and use it in agriculture, and it's going to make a huge difference. One thing I'll share on innovation that I'm really excited about right now is when I first was on the cabinet, we had a presentation from the Arizona Board of Regents. And they said, we have a special pot of money that we set aside for state agencies to come up with opportunity or problem statements and put it out to the universities, all 3 universities. And then they respond. And if they're responding to the problem that we face, then the Board of Regents will fund research to solve what we need. So I was toying with that. Having come from research at the university, I thought we need to take advantage of this. And over the course of 6 months or so, I was toying with different things. But about the same time, Senator Tim Dunn, and it's really nice to have allies in the legislature, and we did this separately, not knowing it was going on, but he had arranged for a meeting of the Board of Regents to be held in Yuma. And so they were very interested in, is there a problem statement that could be addressing the challenges in Yuma? So long story short, that ended up with me putting out a problem/opportunity statement for the universities to address basically the sustainability of agriculture through ag innovation, ag tech, through soil health, and through crop, varietal improvements. And they ended up funding a new entity called the Arizona Hub for Agricultural Innovation, and they're going to fund it to the tune of $1 million a year for 3 years.
Wow.
And some of my criteria were that all 3 universities need to work together so that we
Yes.
leverage the strengths of each university. That the research be done in cooperation with the industry, because that's the only way you know that you're really solving the right problems in the right way that will be utilized, and that it lead to either commercialization or implementation of new technologies and methodologies. And so that's just getting started. I'm really excited about that. I get to oversee that, and I'm really excited about the innovation that might bring.
Oh,
Yeah.
forward to hearing more about that.
I know. And a 3-year timeline to try from beginning to end.
Well, yeah, so I'm glad you asked that, because one of my other criteria was they need to figure out ways to keep it going beyond those 3 years of Board of Regents funding. So that was in the proposals also. And we got 9 proposals, by the way. and that was one of the criteria, is figure out during those 3 years, how do you get other funding streams that keep it going. So I hope I hope 3 years is not the end, but just the
But
beginning.
only the beginning.
Yeah.
And more opportunities and more innovation discoveries on behalf of the industry.
happening.
Yeah. So, final commentary, insights. You've got this set of listeners. They're real keen they can walk away from this podcast and know more about the Arizona Department of Agriculture. But what's one takeaway? What's one insight? What's one final statement you'd like to share with our listeners?
I guess opportunity. I mean, agriculture is, especially in Arizona, we are, some call us the nutrition state. If you think about, if you had to eat, if you put a fence around every state and you had to eat what was produced in your state, I'd like to live in Arizona, not Iowa.
Yeah.
If you live in Iowa, I hope you like pork and
And
corn.
which are good, but we have so much diversity and variety.
Yeah.
Lots of fruits and vegetables
Yeah.
and dairy
Yeah.
and beef and
Yeah. We have a thriving local foods, small producers that are getting into it, young people getting into it. So many bright spots around the state with ranching, with dairy, with, with agriculture. It always goes up and down,
you
and
have the wine to go with it.
we got great wines. The produce business in Yuma is thriving, and a lot of young people involved there. So I just see a lot of opportunity. I know a lot of people think, oh, well, it's the 5 C's and it's kind of historic, and now it's all about chips and everything else. But agriculture's here to stay, and there's a lot of opportunities, and we're just trying to support that.
Well, we can now say we're the 6 C's of Arizona with chips, but the other 5 are not going away,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Paul Brierly, thank you so much. This has been enjoyable, and I always learn when I visit with you. And we're going to have you come back, especially with the new funding from
Yeah,
the Board of Regents.
We absolutely will. Thank you so much. That was
Yeah.
great.
would love to, Tammy, Julie. Thank you.
Thanks.